Yep, hello. Thanks for coming along. I'm going to talk about iridescent paints today. I mean, I need to thank Randy particularly for this because he was the one who suggested it in response to a comment in a newsletter a few months back. And I was waiting till it was warmer so that things would dry a little more quickly in here. And what Randy wanted me to look at or show were the Joe Sonia iridescent paints. So I'm going to include those in here. Some of you may have these in a tube. I know they sell them in tubes or bottles. It might depend on the territory that you're in. But they're just one make. There are a number of different sorts of iridescent paints. You've seen me use the chestnut ones, and you'll notice immediately a rather big difference between these two paints, which I'll talk about in a moment. Um, Golden, another company, they make very good quality paints. They make iridescent and interference paints. There is a difference. Um, Slightly cheaper end if you're in the UK. Hobbycraft sell Pebeo paints. They do some ready mixed iridescent ones. This is a violet blue. This one is a metallic. Um, I've also got some sort of thicker Pebeo acrylic paints. This is a green blue iridescent. And so really what we mean by iridescence is that there's some sort of color shift. Now that depends really on the type of iridescent paint that it is. If it's one of these types of iridescent paints that have the pigment in to provide the color, there's something in there which will add a little bit of a sort of a shimmer when you if you change the angle that you look at it, you might get a bit of color shift, color change going on. Similarly with paints like this, which are branded pearlescent. This pearlescent paint is Joe Sonia one of my favorites, a blue green. There's a very pronounced shift in the color from these. Maybe you can see around the lid here. I've got a sort of greeny, bluey splodges going on. That's a really nice, strong color. Good fun to play around with. Um, so here we go again, another iridescent one. This one is gold. You can tell from the color here. But these two that are white in color, you just get a little hint perhaps of the color. Round here on the lid, there's a little bit of red that you can see when it's dried. These don't contain pigment. And technically, I guess the iridescent paint from Joe Sonia is an interference iridescent paint. Iridescent paints have a number of different categories, like the pearlescent ones and interference. And these work by having mica flakes in that are coated with um, usually titanium dioxide. And what happens is that when the light hits the surface, it reflects off. You've got your mica flake. So let's say my hand is the mica flake, and you've got a coating over it, which is titanium dioxide. And as the light hits, it bounces off this top surface, but it also bounces off this surface here where the two meet. So that you get a shifted wavelength, and that's what gives you the iridescence, the shimmer. And it's a much more pronounced effect, I guess, with the interference paints than with the ready mixed iridescent paints. Apart from some that really stand out, like this green blue pearlescent paint. Right, I'll pop those to one side. The other thing that you might need to invest in if you're going to do this, because they're quite thick, the Joe Sonia and the golden paints, is to use some flow medium so that you can dilute the paint, make it runnier, but not destroy the color, not weaken the color. So I'll be using those as well today. And there are available, I just really haven't had much time to play with them, iridescent mediums. So this is an iridescent medium from Joe Sonia, only recently come out, which they suggest you put over as a almost like a glaze over the surface. We might get time to have a look at that today. And this is one from Hobbycraft. I guess I've had this for at least, before the pandemic, probably at least 5, 6 years, maybe 6 years. And yeah, it's about time that got used. I did have a little squirt from it this afternoon while I was practicing. So we'll see about that. Um, The way you can use the paint is determined by how you apply it. Flat brushes can give you nice ribbon kind of effects in the paint. Teardrop, regular sort of paintbrush can be used to create different patterns as well. You can use my favoured application method of kitchen roll, and so I'll be doing some work with the kitchen roll as well. And one other thing which has just slipped my mind completely. No, it hasn't. I've got it here. Oh, wrong one. So a little sampler board. This, you've seen me do these kind of techniques before. These are all done with the iridescent paints that come from Chestnut. Um, just paint you put on with a paper towel, put on with a paintbrush, making patterns and things in them. But I guess what most people have in mind when they're talking about the iridescent paints, it is the Joe Sonia paints. So I'm going to start off with those. Um, so I've prepared a few boards. So on this one, on the other side, I've got some lacquer, ebonizing lacquer. This one I've been having a little play with. You can see the ghost of some previous goes with it. And you'll notice this is a rather matte finish. Two things I use on the wood. Gesso or gesso, I guess. Black. It's a rather matte one, this one. And really the iridescent paint seemed to work better on a gloss surface. So this one on the right here has got chestnut ebonizing lacquer on. And if you're a beginner here with this, what you'll need to do is sand your wood to 400 and then seal it. I mostly use acrylic sanding sealer from an aerosol, and then 2 or 3 coats of the ebonizing lacquer. And if it's going to be a finished surface, you really need it to be that well prepared so that it'll hold up to scrutiny as a piece of good turning. Now, I've cheated. You can probably see a little bit of texture under here. I've just taken some previous blanks from previous colouring goes and just sprayed some ebonizing lacquer on them. Okay, so I'll get this onto the chuck and then we'll get going with some paint. So if you have any questions, feel free to pop them in the chat. I'll keep having a look. Just say hello to people who've said hello in there. Dave, hello Dave. Hi Chuck. And hello Tony. And thank you to the couple of you that have given me some cash for a new paintbrush. Greatly appreciated. Feel free to pop over and buy me a paintbrush if you'd like to support my newsletter and these free events. Right. So I'm going to start off, as I said, with the Joe Sonia ones. I've got a little tray of them here. I think we will go. It's always nice to use the gold at some point, and I like the turquoise. So gold and turquoise, and I think I'll do the violet as well. Right. So I need to mix those up and I need to thin them down. So I'm going to do that in a couple of palettes here that I must clean out at some point. Let's see, I think I'll do these with flat brushes. And we'll get them in. So gold will go in this one that's got gold in it already. You don't need very much. A little bit of this paint goes a long way. I'll put the violet next to it in there. So it really is just a pea size. You can't really see it in this camera. It's a little bit bright. Maybe well, also you can see that one because it's white on gold, but this one is white on white. So maybe that's expecting a bit too much to see that one. And then some turquoise. Again, very little needed. But to give them a little bit of a longer working time, flow medium will do that. It'll slow down the drying as well as thin them. It means we can play around with the different patterns that we can make with our brush, put different textures in there. If you've used these before and you've had a problem with everything looking white, that might well be because you put it on too thick. You have to get it just right, or the paint's too thick, not that it's too, you haven't mixed it up enough with flow medium. If you put too thick a layer on, I just want to have a look at this camera because it's really bleeding out a bit too much. That image, let's see if I can change that. I could bring the brightness down a little bit and bring that down a little bit. There we go. That's not quite so burnt out, but the white is very, very bright. I don't think I can do much about that today. Right, so that's one mixed up. Now mix up the violet. And then I'll mix up the gold. Get a slightly smaller brush. The gold iridescent. Hopefully that's not going to react with the paint that's already in there. It shouldn't do, as that paint is dry. And I've got my paint brushes laid out in the same order of the colours here. So let's just come on to this tailstock angle, and we'll start off with the blue. Now, interference, iridescent paints that work with interference need a dark background for the colour to stand out. If you put them on a light colour, you get a very subtle effect, and you can use iridescent paints over the top of other colours to add a bit of a shimmer. And you can see here we can move our brush through, making different patterns with the paints. You can go all a bit crazy, swirl things around. You get 15-20 minutes time before it starts drying, and you can play around. You can put in different patterns. I mean, the person to watch and search out on YouTube for this is Mick Hambry. Hopefully all of you will know of Mick. He's my colouring hero, so you've heard me talk about him before. And while that looks a little bit of a mess, as I say, it's going to take a little while to dry. Just use up what I've got here. What I'm concentrating on is getting it to the edge. If you look there, there's a bit there that I've missed. I like to get all of the edges covered. So we could just wipe it radially, just do a few quick examples of that, and we get a sort of burst kind of look. You can put little ripples in, getting them right to the edge where they overlap. There'll be an interesting little pattern going on. I'm changing, the angle's changing, isn't it? You can see as it's going round. Not really ideal. Go for something a bit wider, wobblier. Go for something running across. And although it's white at the moment, when it's dry, we'll get the color coming through. Obviously, if you put lots of the flow medium in, then your color's not going to be quite as strong. And perhaps the sort of most famous iteration with Jo Sonja iridescent paints are putting the color on in swirls and then putting some cling film over the top as a way of moving it. Now, I'm not going to do that. That's other people's demos, but I will show that we could introduce some other texture in there. Just getting a little bit of sponge, just a little bit of sea sponge that has just been soaking in water to get it soft, but I can fiddle around with this and change the texture. It will start loading with the paint, so you might want to move to a different surface and then remember to wash this out while it's still wet. And I will today be speeding up the drying. Just give that sponge a little soak in the water. I'm speeding up the drying with a hairdryer because I want to put another colour over the top, and then we'll do something where we mix the colours while they're still wet. So you might be able to get you in a little closer so you can see this. You can see the blue appearing. So the colour is coming out now. These bits of white here, they'll turn blue as well when it dries. And so we get that nice sort of a bit of a metallic look, a bit of a shimmer. You can see that, I'm thinking, it going on in the picture. It's a rather subtle effect. It's not the best I would say they're not the best use of these colors, but some people like subtle, don't they? Let's have a go with the violet. And we just put this on in some sweeping patterns over the top, so you can see that color coming through where it's a bit thick. We'll mix it round. Going to use up everything that I've put in the pot, even if it is a little too much. I think I've got just about the right amount actually to cover this. And you can use your brush to put in press a pattern into it. And now while that's still wet, I'm going to get the gold and put that into some of the gaps. Didn't leave many gaps, but there are a few around here up the outside edge. And then we can wipe that in. And the same thing holds true for what I've said on a lot of videos that I've done, that when you're doing colouring, it looks very messy until you wait for it to dry and then you turn out the middle. But we can just have a go with a little bit of paper towel, put a little bit of twist in there, break up those brush marks, got something a bit more dynamic, a bit thick round there. And again, take care with your edges, don't miss a bit here. It doesn't have to be that you've got the gold color going everywhere, but all I'm doing with this, just very lightly going on, giving it a little twist. Okay, and we give that just a little blast of heat so we can see the color coming through. So there's the gold beginning to appear. So up here, you see where it's white? That's where it's thicker. You won't see the color until it's dry. So we'll just work on that area. Trying to go as quickly as I can to get it dry for you. Nearly done. You can see the gold now. So you need a fair amount of paint on the surface to be able to manipulate it and move it around. I'm going to put that to one side and let it dry. I've got 7 or 8 blanks so that we can have a look at some different features. That's the wrong chuck key. There we go. That's better. And then I'll bring this one back for another view when it's had a bit of time to dry off. And if I just give you a quick look on the overhead camera, there you can see the color much better. I've got light coming onto it. Quite busy. Might benefit from putting, you know, a wooden line framing it. Obviously we'll frame it later on as well. But there's our first go, just splashing the paint on. Let's put that somewhere out of the way to dry. And let's get another blank. Right, let me just see if we've had any questions. Boom, 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 boom. Okay, there we go. No more questions in there. So all of the ones that I prepared are black, but you can try this on other colors. Black gives you the most vivid difference. So let's move on to mix it up a little bit, and I will get some of the golden paints, interference ones. Let's do green, blue, and gold. So again, these are quite thick, these paints. I'm going to apply it with a paper towel. Just get a sheet of it ready, a few sheets. And I think a lot of wood artists use the golden colors. The pigments in them are pretty amazing in their normal acrylic paints. I think their interference paints are pretty good quality as well. So I'm just going to put a line of that down, not very much. So see there, I've got a little bit of it on there. Maybe this camera will show that a little better. Yeah, so not very much. Just going to fold that in to spread it out a little bit. And let's get a few dots on the surface. Come onto the tailstock camera. There we go. So do that up here. Just we've got a few dots, so you could do something like this. Obviously try to keep the angle the same. If you want to break it up a little, just go back over, smooth it off. And again, these look white until they're dry. You can see here the gold beginning to appear. I think I've got a bit more gold here. Let's go halfway with this. And although this is perhaps a more, well, I was going to say it was subtler. It's not really subtler, is it? It's just we've got a big strong contrast because there's more gaps between the colour and the background. But we'll I'll just work on those edges. That'll take a moment or two to dry. So that was gold. But let's move on to some of the blue. And again, I'm going to just do the same thing, a little pea-sized spot, just work it down the piece of paper, fold the paper over, spread it, and then we'll just go into some of those gaps with some of this. That blue is really quite special. I like that. So this is just neat from the bottle, and I haven't had to use very much. And you know, usually a couple of colors might be enough. So if I were critiquing this as something that I would want to finish off and sell, ignoring the bottom half because I might could do a couple of things on this one. We've got a few areas around here where it looks like it hasn't quite gone to the edge. For me, that looks incomplete. I don't need all of the edge covered. Round here, we've got a few little gaps. I think they work all right. Just going to try and get just a little bit less to close those gaps up a little. So that's quite fun. And then green is the last one. So let's get a little bit of green in there. You can use the same bit of paper actually if I fold that in up on itself. It's quite hard to tell which ones you've used from the bottles because they all look the same in the bottle. Okay, so a bit of green, and then let's target a couple of areas. So seems a bit of a gap there. Let's do these in the gaps. Quite like that little effect of having it a little bit thicker in the middle. That will dry out. Looks like a bit of a gap here. Let's go in there. So I don't want green everywhere, just want it adding in. Round here we've got a bit too much gold. Get some of that round to the other side. So for me, it's a little heavy here with these bits of gold. They look a bit too prominent. But I like the overall effect. I'd want to sort of soften these big areas of gold, ideally by not putting them on so strongly in the first place. Okay, so that is the golden interference paints. Let's make a comparison with using the Joe Sonia ones. So blue and green and gold. Okay, put the other ones to one side so I know I'm not going to be using them. So I suspect we really probably won't. Oh, so is someone sharing their screen? Or am I sharing my screen? I don't know what happened there. Sorry. I suspect we won't really see any real difference. But in the sake of being, for the sake of being thorough, that's got a little bit crusty on the top. Then wipe, start again. So I'll try, I mean, I would say probably the golden one is a little bit thick. Sorry, the Joe Sonia one's a little bit thicker. So I'm just folding it onto the paper just to spread it out a little, so it won't go on too heavily. I will leave a little gap between them. And there we go. That's the gold on. It's slightly different pattern from the other paint because it worked itself onto as a line on the paper towel. And we go with some blue. It looks a little bit different as well at the moment because obviously the golden ones have had time to dry and the colours really do come through a lot more strongly then. So just spreading that round, and we'll sort of go for some of the gaps. Trying to not be too heavy-handed, but you can see it's coming on a little bit thick in one or two places. I want to leave some room for the green to go in there as well. But as it's drying off, I would say that gold is getting a little bit more pronounced. It's perhaps not quite so bright as the golden brand. And so we just got green left to go. In terms of prices, from memory, I think they're fairly similar in price, the golden and the Joe Sonia iridescent interference paints. The golden do a line of what they call iridescent paints, but they are along the lines of the chestnut paints in that they have the pigment in there. And it's about how you view that paint from different angles. You get slightly different effects as opposed to the interference type of iridescence. I found it a fascinating video on it. If I might post it in the links as a link in the recording email if you want to go into the physics of light refraction. Nod your heads if you do. Some of you are probably falling asleep already. So here we go, bit of green in again. Let's put that in those gaps. So I would say this perhaps gives you a little bit more control about where you put the colors. So and the sort of patterns that you can make as opposed to when you swirl the colours on. And I will post a link to a Mick Hanbury demo where he uses the what's it call it, the cling film approach. So give that a moment or two to dry. The gold is probably dry. It's a little bit duller than the golden gold. The blue, well, I'd say the Joe Sonia blue looks a little bit more got a bit more of a purplish tinge to it, and the green really hasn't had a chance to dry yet. We've got a question. Have I ever used the Joe Sonia paints with an airbrush? No, I haven't. I have used the chestnut ones with an airbrush. What time is it? 5:30. We could have a go. I could get out an airbrush and mix them up, and we'll see what happens. So let's get this one off and we'll let that dry, and we'll come back to it a little later on. But if now I've taken it off, I can't remember which was which. Yes, I can. I'll just give you a quick overhead look. So again, the overhead shot is the one to really sort of show off the effect of the colours. There seems to be something a bit wrong with the focus of this camera at the moment. Let's have a little look. Oh, it's on autofocus. I think it's just probably struggling to focus. Okay, leave it like that. Right, so yeah, this gold in the light does look pretty strong actually. Doesn't look dissimilar to the golden one at all any longer. The blue's pretty similar, the green's pretty similar. So although at first it looked like that gold wasn't as strong, it's definitely as strong. So I would say there's no difference between them. One other thing I get asked about and using the iridescent paints for is if I ever use them for a centrifuge. I never have, but I'm sure it's going to be fun to play with them in that way. And I expect them to work absolutely fine, and very similar to the iridescent paints from Chestnut that I've done centrifuge on, if you remember that one from a few months back. Let's find suitable blank that I've got prepared. Here we go. Will that chucky fit? Just about. Right. So, but again, the paint's too thick, like it is when I use the other Joe Sonia paints for centrifuge. It's too thick as it is. So, I think we might get a more interesting pattern from it if there was some background color, but I'll just start off with it going straight onto black. And I'm going to go with the green just because I've got that here in my hand. Trying to remember which colors were in which mixing pot. Okay, so a bit of green. Let's show you it mixing. It might be a bit more interesting than the top of my head. And the flow medium is here. So I've got some green in there, flow medium. Green brush. This is the golden one. I think this was the green brush. That's a lavender brush. That's a blue brush. Let's get a green brush. In fact, let's avoid confusion by getting a rounded paintbrush for this. Right, so let's turn the lathe on. We start it with it at low speed. Change the view for you. There's a little wobble on here, so it might be a little uneven, the spreading of the paint. But we start in the middle. And speed up. So you can see it moving across. I mean, the only difference I really expect there to be with this, as opposed to doing it with regular paint, is that sort of a nice shimmer. We've got quite a lot of the paint left, so we just put some more of that on. I think we can go a little faster, see if it will move further. One more big dollop going on. Still quite a bit on that bit of the brush. Let's work the rest of it off. So the wobble, as I say, might cause a bit of an uneven spread of the paint. That's green. Let's have a look. Yeah, so that's pretty similar to the chestnut paints. You get very nice, very thin lines. Not fully developed the color yet. Got to obviously leave that to dry off. It actually has done pretty good job, I think, of moving all the way around the surface. A bit better than I'd anticipated, actually. Let's see, a few more questions coming up. I think, yeah, there's a comment about moving the paint, putting blobs of the paint on and then moving it with an airbrush, which I've managed to lose from my screen for some reason. Oh, I think it's because I've managed to minimize that as well. Let's get that back. Yeah. Yeah, so you can put blobs of paint on and blow it around with an airbrush. I think there'll be time for us to play around with that. Yeah, that's fun, but I'm going to just try some other rings of color over the top. Just dry that off, because one of the other things is the nice way that these colors interact with each other. So I just give that a quick blast of warm air. It's not on its full heat setting. That's dry. And that's brought out the color a lot more. So I'll just use the colors that I've got here. I've got some blue. I might need to use, let's use it's not clean, but we'll use a different, a different pot. Bit of blue in there. And the blue brush. And some flow medium going in. Give that a little mix. And we'll mix it up, change it up a little bit. I won't put just one line of this blue in the middle. I'll put a couple of lines of it. And then we'll give that a spin. Interesting how strong the green is while it's spinning. The blue looks a little dull. Let's stop it and have a look. Yes, that's very nice. We've got sort of a blue background. It's reacted a bit with the green, not a huge amount. I'm just going to get a little bit more because I've got a bit more paint on my brush. I'll just try and strengthen that one. A little bit more there. You can see really it's the usual thing. I'm just playing around, trying things out. While that's drying off, let's mix up some gold. A bit of flow medium. Gold brush. Mixing up. Turn the speed down and let's go in the gaps with the gold. In the gap, there we go. And right at the very edge, quite a bit of gold left. Let's use it all up. And then spin. Now, I suspect that it's dry. It's a very warm day, because I would expect that to move a bit. Well, I can see it moving a bit. See if we've had any other questions coming in. Oh, I keep losing the chat for some reason. Let's have a look down here. Maybe I've closed it. There we go. All right. I say, okay, yeah, I've had a question about the speed. So that speed, that was going at about 2000, this last one. Now we're beginning to see the effect of the imbalance a bit, where it's run across there, which is a bit of a shame. It's a bit too busy there, but I quite like the look of it here. The colours could be a bit stronger, I would say. One of the things about spreading it thinner is that you sort of lose some of that punch, but it's very white here, and that's probably because that's the bit that's still a bit dry. So we just put a bit of warmth on that to speed up drying. Another 15 seconds. Again, the colours look different, look stronger while it's spinning. The green that I wiped on there is showing a lot more strongly. Okay, and again, I'll take that out and show it to you on the overhead. View, which is that button, I think. Was that button, but it's decided to. There we go. Again, you need to see it with the light falling on it. You can see it, so it looks much stronger, much more vibrant. And again, we need to get our middle turned out. It's interesting how changing the angle really does affect the look of that color and the vibrancy of it. If I'm looking at it from a low sort of angle, I'm looking across it like this. It doesn't look very colorful at all, but full on, much stronger. All right, that's that one done. Let's get an airbrush from somewhere. And we'll have a look at it with airbrushing. So let's get this now and paint up. So this is my little gallery airbrush, which I've used a few times. Just got to screw the paint cup in. For some reason, it's ridiculously hard to get the lid off this. Getting looser with it's getting looser with age. Right. And let's get the stand to put this out on. Hold it in place and the compressor turned on. And we'll go with, let's go with some turquoise. So I'm going to need to mix this in the cup and get it the consistency that I need, or mix it before it goes in the cup, so I should say. Come back onto this one. So I'm going to do that in here. And really with airbrushing, you need very small amounts of paint. And it needs to really be the consistency of the flow medium itself, actually. I'll use the back of a paintbrush to mix it in. Let's show you that on a different camera. So I've got it mixed. You can see it does sort of cling to the paintbrush. It's still a little bit on the thick side, but I don't want to thin it down too much. Let's keep mixing it up a bit. Right, we'll give that a try. Just before I do that, I'll just put a bit of wood in the chuck. It might be fun to do this with a stencil as well, but we'll see if it works first. I'll get a stencil ready. Okay, have a stencil ready, and let's pour this into our brush. Yeah, that is a little bit on the thick side. If it needs thinning, I can thin it in the cup. Okay, start off. Let's give it a little go, see if we're getting anything coming out. Not yet. It's a bit thick. Right. So mixing in the cup, I'll show this on the overhead. We can see the paint in there. It needs a little more runniness, so I'll put some more flow medium in, and then I'm going to block the end of the airbrush up and just pass air through it, and we should get bubbling. You just about see it, so it's mixing in there. If it won't come out now, the other thing I can try, of course, is to put the air pressure up on the compressor. There we go. We got some. Okay, but you can't see it. Yeah. So it comes out, but it's because you've had to thin it, or because I've had to thin it. I wouldn't say it's going on particularly evenly, but it's quite an interesting effect. Let's do a stencil around some of this rim. I think it's going to be a little bit too subtle. I guess that's the guys who've done this with putting the paint around the edge and then blowing blobs of it have probably got it right. Let's pop that onto the other camera. I can bring you up. Bring that view up a little bit. No, has that camera decided to stop working? No, my controller's decided to stop working. Give it a moment. It'll come back. Okay, it's not working there, but it's a little bit disappointing, I would say. Let's go a little stronger. Yeah, that's showing up a bit better. So it's a slow effect. It's not particularly eye-catching. Do a bit more. And as it dries, it fades quite a bit. So a bit more experiment needed with airbrushing. But I can show you what other people have done. If we take this off the chuck and you come onto the overhead camera. Yeah, that's showing up all right. Let's go with a bit of gold. That's the one that gold gets mixed in. It needs thinning. You can't blow it around with an airbrush as it comes from the tube because it's too thick. So let's get a nice dollop of that. Much stronger colour when it's not got so much medium mixed into it. And then dual action, so I'm not going to be putting paint on this, but if I blow, I can move that around and create little patterns in it. I've already done my splodges a little on the large size. It picks up, I like the way it picks up sort of the ripples of air running through it. You can put movement in it. And it will dry with that suggestion of layers. Probably could have been a little thinner even, actually. But you get a nice, there, hold it there. Sort of three-dimensional effect going on while it's drying. One color, of course, is never enough. Let's get some blue in there. And I'll do this perhaps a little thinner. So proportion wise, it's about 50-50 that I've used. Just mix that up. And we put some down. It's interesting, it's going to pick up some of the other colour that's in there. I had red spirit stain in to begin with before, and look, it's reactivated it. Isn't that fun? It's my Jekyll and Hyde moment. Those of a literary persuasion. The tragedy of Dr. Jekyll was that he had contaminated potion. There was something contaminated his mixture that he couldn't recreate, and he was condemned to be Hyde without any choice. Now, when I've seen this effect done, I don't like there being large gaps. I'm a bit fussy, aren't I? So again, I'm going to make sure I push it right to the edge. I don't like there being gaps around the edge, or even gaps in between. It looks incomplete to me. So I would probably go back in with another color, or one of the original colors, and work those gaps out, because they look like, oh, that's bits that one didn't get bothered to be painted. As it dries, and again, as I said earlier, the whiteness will disappear. And I can move it a bit more forcefully. Let's put some more pressure into this airbrush. Yeah, so I'm running this at higher pressure. That's better. I can mix those edges together. It's a very effective look. It's something to build up. Here where it's all white, of course, that will go. But where these are gaps, to me, they look a bit incomplete. So in there, I'm going to go with the green as I've got it to hand. A little pea-sized amount. Again, 50-50. Slightly more than 50-50 actually by the look of things. I think this was a green brush, so let's mix this in. Mix it with the back of the brush. And then I'm going to target the gaps. Now I know that this, we haven't got a clean edge here because of the fact that I've only got a narrow rim really on this one. But I'll just work it in this area and we'll see the effect. A little bit, let's see, a little bit there, a bit of a gap. That will probably fill up. Get that right to the edge. Well, that's quite nice. Little effect, just pushing the paintbrush in. Anyway, let's get some air on it. Another minute or two of this one. So I don't want to leave any bare bits of the rim. So change the angle. Quite quite nice doing this by holding it in my hand. It gives me a lot more freedom and control and about where the colours go. Bit of a gap there. Let's try and fill that in. It's a little garish for my taste. And push that around the edge. And you know, an option is to put the colors on at the same time, blobs of the paint on at the same time, and then you'll get them mixing and mingling with each other in a way that they haven't with this, because the gold was pretty much dry. Just give it a little bit of warmth. And then a quick 2 minute final technique with the paint. So let's just go on the overhead view again. Let it focus, put my hand there, focus on my hand. There we go. Quite bright again, very vivid, very strong, reflective. It's a little bit too busy, I think. We've still got big areas of white as well where it hasn't dried off. So that needs another sort of 20 minutes or so to dry off. And then, yeah, that white, this large white bit here should dry and show us the color. If it's too thick, it will stay white, in my experience, even when it's dry. Right, pop that to one side. Then a very quick, fun method. This is quite a large disc, 12 inches. I think it would fit onto this camera view. Oh, let's zoom out a little bit. Any more questions? No. Oh, 4 new messages. Let me just have a quick look. Okay, I've answered ratio to paint flow to medium. Yep, Chuck, you're absolutely right. There are so many different ways of using these paints. The paper towel method for a base and done a spin pattern over the top. I haven't used that with these paints. I've used it with well, here we go. Funny you should mention that, because on the other side of this is one with the Joe Sonia, just the artist paints rather than the iridescent paints. So I think it would be pretty similar, except it would be that they're much brighter, much shinier, as we've seen when I hold them up under the camera. Apart from that first one I did, which is a little bit subtle and a bit dull, but there'll be a quick 30-second gallery coming up of the different effects. That's looking like it's not in the chuck properly. Let's try again. Oh, it's a bit wobbly. Okay. Right, so this is going to be a fun way. I'll put you back on the overhead. I'm going to use a flat brush, a wide flat brush. Let's do some slightly different colors this time. Grab these other two. What are these? Red and violet. Okay. So I'm going to use this piece of paper towel as a palette. I'm going to put blob of one colour, so that's violet. I think we go with the turquoise next to it. Turquoise and gold. So on the paper, of course, they look exactly the same. They're showing up. I'm going to use a wide flat brush to just work those colours onto my brush. I don't want to mix them too much sideways. Get some more paint on there. So not centrifuge, circumferential. Let's change you. I'll change you onto the tailstock camera, but my controller has decided to stop working, which is a bit annoying. Oh, it's finally worked. Got one last bit. You can see the colours on the brush, perhaps. Oh, now that might be a nice one to put colours over the top. It's a little uneven. You can see there's a lot thicker the paint here. There's a wobble in the board. But we've got the clear different colours: the gold, the bluey green, and the mauve or violet. But that's calling out for me something to sort of go across it. Some lines. I'll just quickly dry that off. Particularly this bit where it's wetter. Then overrun a few minutes, not too much longer. Let's get the box in. I mean, we could continue building this up and getting a stronger look, but I just thought, oh, let's try it with a spin. Just thinking what colour to go with. Let's get some green. Interference green. I think that was a green one. Right, mix that up. This was a green brush, gold brush, green brush. Okay. History in the making. Bit of green. And now let's fire it up. And that will hopefully, it's not going to spread evenly because the wood's so uneven. But it should provide sort of some structure for the rings of colour. I hope. We'll see. We may need something that will stand out a bit bolder. Ooh, very nice and busy. Maybe I'd like something a bit thicker there, but also again, it looks a little bit ragged because we haven't got a clean edge next to it. And it's still quite white, that green, if that makes any sense. I'll just give it one little blast. I like this bit here where it's clearly moved in slightly different lengths depending on, you know, when I put more of the paint on, it gives it a bit of a sort of three-dimensional look. I'll take that off and show it on the overhead, and then a quick review of what we've done and a check for if there are any further questions. No more questions. Okay, so this is on this way round. Yep, so let's put it on the overhead. That controller, my Bluetooth controller is not speaking to the computer very well, so let's do it there. Okay, again, very different look once you're looking down, and you can see all of the movement and the vividness of the color. The green is now beginning to come through. I actually think this might need to be toned down a little. I'd be tempted to maybe even put a black running across it, just to break it up into different compartments. So that was the last one. Let's go back and revisit them one by one. So this is the first go, which has dried. We've got some nice movement in it. It's not dissimilar to the look that's applied you can get with cling film. But as I say, I'll put some links into the recording for other videos you may not have seen. Could be a bit bolder, a bit stronger. After that one, we had this one, and where that really sort of shows the way those paints really do pop. And the camera is really struggling to autofocus on it. If I put my hand there, I think that makes it better. So you can see the brightness, the vividness of the two colors. This was the golden ones. This was the Joe Sonia ones. Really very little difference to be detected, I would say, between them. And then rings of color. The centrifugal look. Nice fine lines again, which were actually green, and they've now dried and are showing through. And then the blowing it around with the airbrush. So again, this is still not dry. If I put my finger in it, it comes off. It's let's put some fingerprints in it. I mean, that's another fun thing to do with these paints, is to use your finger in them. You get interesting little pattern emerging. I'll leave that to dry. I'll get some photos of this done when they're all dry and put them in the recording link as well. Let's just see if there's any questions that have come in. That one is my favorite at 6:07. I guess that's this one, Chuck, that I'm holding up now. Let's switch the view to gallery, so I can see, if your cameras are on, I'll be able to see your faces better. Yeah, I think my favorite is probably this one. It's not quite there. This one, I think I could execute a bit better than I have. It looks it's a little clunky in a couple of areas, but I mean, be interested to see how the fingerprints dry. You might be able to access my phone then. Oh no, did I use that finger? I think I used that finger, didn't I? Yeah. No, you won't get into my phone with that finger. Sorry, Kevin. See you shaking your head there. That was it. Well, I had 3 more blanks prepared, but I think that's an hour and 10 minutes is enough of watching paint dry. The second one, I think. Oh, thank you, Terry. So next live Zoom, possibly I'll fit one into June. I'm not too sure. Obviously, I'm off to America the 10th of June. I've got a show with my wife on the 8th of June, and 2 days teaching up at Simon Hope's on the 4th and 5th of June. So it may need to wait until I return from America, which will probably get us into late June or early July. But keep in touch. If you've done any do any work with these colors, send me pictures of it. I'd like to put some stuff in the newsletter, some examples of your work. And if you've got any questions that occur to you afterwards, then feel free to get in touch. I'm going to stop the recording now, and thank you very much for watching.
Right.